De Leon Essentiella, what's up, y'all? Psychic Trauma here. Hashtag living the stream. Yep, we'll be live streaming in an hour or so outside. Oh. Little Sheezers, what's up? There says there's a fire in Jeffco, which is golden. I'm just reading about it right now. Oh. Lakewood, Colorado, to Golden, Colorado. Oh. How are you? So I went to the weed store. Spent like $80. I got some wild. It's a 2-to-1 THC blend. Helps with sleep, so I'll be taking that. This one is a 20 CBD to 1 THC. I felt like I sneezed at work earlier. I was doing fine. Oh hell yeah! I'm smoking some Lavender Trainwreck. So here. Oh, so right here. Oh, right here, dude. I sneezed and I felt like my ribs broke, like a loud pop. And some old dude behind me, like 10 feet, was like, holy shit. Mango cannabis infused gummies. This is solventless hash rosin, 10 milligrams. They're 10 milligrams a piece. Made with real fruit. So, yep. And then I got 5 joints, 22% THC, fried apple. And a Simply Spiked lemonade. I actually like these. Oh. Oh my god, dude. So we're gonna. I forgot to buy a lighter. I have matches. Hold on. I gotta go get matches. Oh. Hold on. Oh my fucking god, dude. My fucking side hurts. I gotta go get some matches. Alrighty. Oh. So today's April 1st, also known as April Fool's Day. This pain in my side is no joke. This is not an April Fool's joke. Holy fuck. My fucking side hurts, dude. Laying in bed. And oh my god. I was lying with my hand up like this because I've had broken ribs before, and doing it like this allows for lung expansion, so that way you don't get a respiratory infection. Dude, you're absolutely fucking right. I forgot to ask the FBI why I can't get on Omegle. So Monday, I'll be calling them to make sure that those two people are real. Did a 10-hour day today, yo. Yeah. On my feet, except when I felt like I broke my rib. Honestly, I sneezed and it sounded like a loud crack and pop, dude. And like some old dude 10 feet behind me was like, "Was that your rib, young man?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I just dropped to like my feet, dude, almost to my knees. And I sat on this like this little brick wall that was only like a foot and a half tall, not even 2 feet. Well, just maybe 2 feet. I don't think so. Like right in front of somebody's house, you know? Because my current job is canvassing, knocking on people's doors, asking them about candidates, if they voted, what do they believe the most pressing issue in Denver is. Oh my god, dude! For 10 seconds, I couldn't breathe, I couldn't speak, and the dude was like, "Do you need some water?" And I was like, "I have some." Yeah, dude, fucking dropped me, yo. I was like, "Holy fuck, dude." Yeah, and I just sat there for 10 minutes doing what I could to breathe, and I could barely breathe. I could barely inhale and exhale, dude. I'm loosening up the joint. Alrighty. Oh, bird, right? Oh my god. Oh my god, dude. Holy shit. Oh fuck. I gotta watch out for coughing. Oh, that hurts in here. It hurts on the inside. It hurts on the inside of my ribs. Dude, like at least 6 inches, maybe 8. Oh my god. Holy fuck. And I got all that CBD stuff and THC gummies to help me sleep with the pain. You're smoking lavender train wreck. Oh. Fried apple. Oh, dude, it even hurts to fart. Oh my god, dude. Holy fuck. Oh, wow. Oh, dude. So, oh my god, I do not want to cough. Um, I told myself I'd lay off the marijuana and alcohol until 420. And then I also told myself before 420 I'd smoke some weed so that way I'm not fucking retarded when I get to the 420 festival and start blazing. Yeah. I'm high as fuck. No, I'm not high as fuck. I'm hurting as fuck, dude. I want to get high as fuck. Don't even feel high. Oh man, I gotta be careful taking a big hit. Dude, I don't even feel high from smoking. I'm hoping it helps with the pain. I went in and I was like, "What do you got for the pain? What do you got for CBD?" And they had the edibles. So, oh my fuckery. Let's get to an edible. All right, the first edible we're eating: strawberry gummies, 20 to 1, CBD to THC. Yeah, so there's 20 units of CBD to 1 unit THC. Um, let's see how much THC is in here. 10 milligrams. All right. CBD, 200 milligrams. So the question is this, there's 10 in here, I believe, 10 gummies. So then that would mean that it's actually 20 milligrams of CBD to 1 milligram of weed every gummy. Alrighty. Bird. Just fucking dropped it in my chair. Bird. Alrighty. This fucking hurts. I am feeling a little high, but I don't know how else to describe it. I'm like, eh. I don't understand how I can like think in my head that I don't believe any of this is real, but I can feel fucking pain. Because lifting this joint up hurts. Smoke till you feel like cool taste. What does that mean? Oh. So it does help a little with the pain? Oh, a little. Is that how you? Oh my God. I'm doing everything with my right hand too, putting all that weight and movement on my right side. No clue how it fucking happened. Don't know where it's coming from. Do what I can to sleep good. I don't think I'm all crooked when I sleep on my side. I normally make sure because I get that stuff in my head. Yeah, I'm gonna make sure I'm not like crooked. I sprawl over my bed, so I try to make sure it's like a nice, healthy pose, even if it's like a yoga pose, you know. Oh my fuck, dude. So I got to think about like what's going on. Obviously, there's the World War III thing, Russia, Ukraine. I don't know if you can hear sirens for the norm. Yeah, like the way I look at it is statistics and pattern recognition. It's a buildup of some kind, right? To get there. So I was thinking in my head, all right, so Trump was president. Then Biden, all right? Now let's say, I mean, look how close we are. We got one more, it's 2023. We only got 2 years left of Biden, you know? Because at the beginning of 25, he's gone, right? But if it's Trump again, does that mean 2 more terms of Trump? And so, if you look at it and you think about it, Trump never really had a war when he was president. Well, I mean, he was continuing dealing with war, but he never got to say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to go get my own." And I mean, both George Bushes had an Iraq. Um, Clinton, I believe, was fake most of the time, but he had Bosnia and a few other places. Actually, a lot of other places. Um, Uncle Biden and Aunt Jemima, or Aunt Biden, Uncle Obama and Aunt Biden. Yeah, it took me a second to think about that. Obama and Biden. Um, they they continued war and went all over different places. So I think of Trump, like he gets president again. Think about all like the different organizations where he's just going to be like, "Oh, I'm not declaring war against this country or these people. I'm declaring war against just these guys right here who just happen to be in your country and your people." So think about how he wants to declare war against the Mexican cartel or any type of trafficking of anything, drugs, people, weapons, you know, where he just says, "Oh, hey, bad guy, we're sending troops." You know, we're just not going to sit back and say, "Okay, all these people hate us, hate our way of life. Um, we're we're going to go get them, and if they're committing any illegal activity, we're going to go get them." And oh, fucker, oh god, I sigh, dude. Anyways, if anybody's committing any fucked up shit, we're just gonna go send troops. I can see that fucking glare myself on my glasses, dude. Yeah. So Trump will just be like, "Hey, I got this, dude." He doesn't need to declare war against anybody. And so, like, you're going to have this Biden World War III build up. And let's say Trump gets in, he's like, "No, no, no, we're not going to go to war with Russia. Russia's not going to go to war with Europe. They're just going to take Ukraine. All right. China, they're going to go take Taiwan, wherever the fuck. Okay. They're claiming their land. But if there's anybody that Trump claims is like a criminal or a terrorist organization or somebody to be targeted, you know, like honestly, think about it. It doesn't have to just be the Mexican drug cartels or some other worldwide drug cartel, which again could be the Taliban, all those Sanics, whatever you want to call them. I just listed off like if you want to call them a camel jockey, this and this and this. Yeah, no. Anywhere for any reason, as long as we say, "Hey, hey, hey, we're not declaring war against that country. We're not declaring war against those people. We're going to just declare war against this organization." So we go anywhere, right? And I'm like, what the fuck is this? Where's it going? Like what's going to be this massive, beautiful end game of bullshit of setting up, what would you call that? Countries, organizations to go and uh, go after the United States. You know, I don't know how to go out there and get us. So, oh my fuck. I can't even put weight on that fucking side, dude. I wanted to start working out too. How the fuck do I do a push up when my shit's all fucked up, dude? Right? How am I supposed to keep my core up and do crunches and whatever the fuck that is, or bird dogs and stuff? If one side of my side's all fucked up. But anyways, yeah. So think about that. There's that. There's all that stuff that I just said about like what could possibly be the rest of the Biden bullshit, and then what do you call that? Like another 8 years of Trump. All right, because what are the chances of us actually getting somewhere else? Anyways, yeah, my side fucking hurts. So I was thinking, well, what if everybody just said like fuck Joe Biden and said fuck Ukraine and chose not to participate in any of that and send any supplies there and any of that, you know, just like I'm good. You know, Ukraine's over there, Ukraine, we're over here. Um, Everybody thought Russia invaded the Ukraine when Russia invaded the Crimea. All right. And so when people compare it to like the expansion of the Nazis, and I'm like, well, no. All right. Think about how fast and how far the Nazis spread in such a quick time limit. And then also think about how so many countries instantly took the side of the Nazis. All right. So if you think about like some of those like Finland, Sweden, Switzerland, Norway, those areas, they basically, what would you call that? It was like, yeah, we don't care. Go ahead, be a Nazi. And they weren't really taking over as they did join in. And when those countries somehow lost, and that's the thing. I mean, I don't think ideology ever really loses. You know, ideology has like an ideology. You know, it continues with its own momentum and wave that doesn't even have to be of its origin. Ripple, I think that's what it's called, like a ripple. You know, so racism, Nazism, superiorityism, hateism, ideology, fanaticism isn't solid. It isn't always the same. I mean, think about how in 1776, allegedly 200 years ago, right? 250 years ago, we had a revolution, and it took a while for it to be complete. All right, and some people said it finally in 1812. Some people say no, it was 1789. But they all allegedly agree that it's the official hey, hooray, fuck you day was the 4th of July. You know, like happy officially fuck you to the government. and that ideology of freedom and from tyranny included tarring and feathering people. It included gruesome, bloody acts and just blowing holes in people and stabbing them with a knife at the end of a gun with a bayonet, or just cleaving into them. Or even worse, stuff we don't even properly record, like mutilation and torture, poison gassing. And that ideology then was completely acceptable and civil. And somehow now the ideology that's going on with patriotism is that doesn't include tar and feathering, And we allegedly figured out that if you're you, I'm me, we all have rights. So we'll have a unified Bill of Rights. This group of people over here, well, we think this is the main right, And what? This all makes sense. Vasco Grub. Okay, so those rights just became various people's standing point. So it wasn't like everybody agreed, all right, this is number one, this is number two, this is number three. No. They just had enough senators or representatives or people who are willing to stand up and say, hey, this is what we're agreeing to. And one of those is no cruel and unusual punishment. All right. And that is such a fucking phrase right there. Because think about how gruesome that could be. Because think about give to Caesar what's owed to Caesar, cruel and unusual punishment. When they're like, oh, well, we don't think this is cruel because those guys have been doing it, which is a really fucked up mentality. And that was their form of patriotism, even when they got to the point of like, hey, I don't want this done to me anymore, but I'll put in a little clause that says I have the right to say, hoorah, fuck you, I'll do it at you. Because you all have done it, right? Right. I don't know how else to say that. So that ideology of patriotism is not the ideology of patriotism now. At least I don't think it is, because I really haven't heard of any recent tarring and featherings or somebody just being like, oh yeah, fuck off, cruel and unusual punishment. I didn't violate it because that's kind of the norm, right? So if you think about how the hateism, the racism, whatever it is, Nazism ideology there is, people who always claim that superiorityism, whatever it is, that says, well, hey, this is mine, whether you call it a monarchy, a democracy, any of those, dude, any of those, monarchy, democracy, theocracy, that's the one with religion. That's the one I'm kind of thinking of. One of those where it's like, oh yeah, well, God says I can, The only thing that carries on with it is the hateism, the racism, the Nazism, but the means and the how and the whys are not always the same. Considering that when America was being formed, America hold on, I gotta turn this alarm off. This was the alarm to remind me to go outside and live stream. Okay, so the people who wanted to be free from a government committed a different means and they had a different belief system, while at the same time they even had slaves, And nowadays, the slavery thing is gone for the mass of slaves. And removing individual slavery, replacing with mass slavery, doesn't always have the same means, from what do you call that? Passing laws to force people to drink tea, all right, at various times throughout the day. And the tea is dirt cheap, like a penny for a ton. It's actually some weed they just boil. And charging an outrageous price for it, which basically amounted to slavery to some. And their means, they're not cruel, they're not unusual, including tarring and feathering. All right. And if that were to carry on, would that go to the point of Nazism, where it's like, well, we picked this one right here and we succeeded, so now we're going to expand our ideology. And that expansion of the ideology can be considered the Nazism of, oh, hey, we have the right to expand, all right? Every human being, every intelligent being, cognizant being has the right to explore, expand, fantasize, dream, imagine, all right? So there are those ideologies that have human connection and meaning that stick with those facilitating another ideology or the same ideology. And with the same mechanism of hateism or racism, for lack of a better term, harm, oppression, whether it's tar and feathering or it's gassing in war and expanding, or it's whatever it could be anywhere else. Somebody's saying, well, this used to be my spot, all right? My heritage comes from here, okay? And my belief system, my ideology says anybody from here can get up and always reunite here. And if you reunite here, you can have the right to reunite the entire world. And some ideologies throw in God that say that they can do that with the blessing of God. And those who stand in their way are going against God, you know? And if a government has that same belief system, anybody who stands in their way is going against the government. And the government has this ideology that they are the patriotism, that they are the actual truth and light and being and salvation of that ideology, the God of that ideology. So sometimes they may not even realize that. So, and then they can purposely, for lack of a better term, brainwash themselves, fanaticism of within an ideology or to an ideology, where they recognize that they are not the apex, the apotheosis of the ideology. They're the enforcement of the ideology. All right. And overtaking of the ideology, like, hey, I want to steer this, I want to take command of it. And as a true fanatic, you're either with me or you're against me, something like that. And they have a grasp of the enforcement of the ideology. They have a grasp of the enforcement of the ideology, and then it is whatever who has the force of the ideology says it is. Think about it. If you are in charge of the government is whatever you say it is, as long as you or as long as there is the enforcement of the government. Same with a religion, right? Um, Religion, organized religion, in its enforcement a couple hundred years ago was disgusting and brutal, public. Nowadays it's probably just the same, yet it is not as public anymore. It is more publicized in media and stuff like that instead of a law requiring people to show up and see it, right before tea or right after tea. And dry mouth, hurt side, holy fuck. So, this ideology and its enforcement um, can be anything, anywhere, anytime, anyhow, any why, especially if there is a separation of time, of generations, of people. All right. So that way, nobody who is alive uh, was within several generations of somebody who partook in its creation or in its maturation, where it is maturing into what it is. So they're not a complete beginner. They're somewhere in the middle where it started to take hold, like this ideology of, oh man, we've got this, whether or not they actually have it, due to the fact that those who are part of it are no longer existent. So they're no longer alive. So the ideology only continues with separation, such as a ripple. And it, it gets so far out there, nobody can actually know what it actually stood for when whatever the ideology is claiming. When from after like the point of the ideology, right? The apex, the apotheosis, right? Like the God or the founding fathers, um, you know, and which are now incorporated into corporations. And so the ideology of the leader guy, the apotheosis, is never graspable. All right. So the center of it can never be grasped. And once that right there does exist, because it's generation over generations, um, it facilitates or it ripples. What the fuck would that be? Matures. All right. As it's maturing, okay. Um, the foundations of the ideology, the government, the belief system, the church, the religion, they were being formed and challenged and matured into what is the current ideology. So, if you could have many thoughts, many ideologies, many drops in a pond, and those ripples collide, all right, or they just overlap. Who knows if they actually collide? There's no, but anyways, they can all be there at the same time. So you can have church, government, with their own ideologies at the same time, uh, and basically within the same group of people, that same mass slavery, not the individual slavery of this person owns that person, which that belief system still exists, um, due to the fact it is allowed to exist, right? Due to the fact that certain ideologies use tarring and feathering, burning at the stake, drowning them if they're a witch, or burning them at the stake if they're witch. Cruel and unusual punishments, things that we would say, yeah, that's cruel and unusual, even though our ideology has done it, right? And to say that, oh, we can no longer commit these acts against a person due to the fact these acts cannot be committed against me and I am a person. Um, so that right there is a belief system not of the church, the government, the corporation, it's of the people, which is the mass that carries on every ideology. And those who had that belief initially were not in control, were not in power, did not have the grasp of the ideology. They had to commit what we would call cruel and unusual punishment to gain the reins, tarring and feathering, which is the same way the church, another ideology, gained the reins, was able to get the grasp to say, hey, you want to know, we can enforce this with this violence. If you don't recognize that this group of people here have this many people to go to war, or to enforce this many people to enforce the ideology, then we get to burn you at the stake and or use the force that we have. So the church's ideology was enforced however they chose to enforce it. The government's ideology also came with an association to a church, that which was actually a used a corporation that they basically separated the person from and said, well, hey, there's a group of us who is the government, the entire government. We used to be ordained by the church. We broke away from the church because we didn't want to pay them the money. We figured out the church's rig, and their rig was basically slavery. You have to give this to your God, and if you don't, we set you on fire. And they enforced it. So the government, or a different ideology, a monarchy, decided, well, hey, we're not cool with that. And several of them did it. Even Martin Luther did it. And then a monarchy had to hide him in a castle and defend him with force, with enforcement, against somebody else's enforcement, saying, that guy's not allowed to say that. So you have this constant, like, okay, well, how do we separate ourselves from somebody claiming this great God? Like, they're just like, oh, well, hey, look at me. Me and all the people of my ideology say we're of God, all right? And whoever is the leader guy is the leader guy. And if you don't recognize the leader guy of our ideology, you're not recognizing God. And so we've already put in our own little Bill of Rights that says we have the right to commit these acts if people don't recognize that we are the ones in charge of the ideology of God. So that ideology was separated from and over. So you have people who were put in power because the church, a king, and then the king saying, fuck the church. But I can't football properly with his hand. So then that had a small group of people. And that small group of people did what it could to enslave the masses, to say, well, hey, I'm still the king. This is all my land. And you're not allowed to hunt on my land because they're all animals. Where it used to be all God's animals, and whoever was in the church, who controlled the church, the church. Um, they said, well, you're not allowed to hunt the animals without our say so, and you have to give us so much no matter what, even if we do say so, because God says so. And we're the one telling you that because we have the grasp of the ideology. And so, oh my God. Oh, this weighs so much more than that can. Dude, I got to sit up straight and I'm like, oh my fuck, dude. Oh my God, dude. We'll get back to that. Oh, that felt good. All right. Oh my fuck, dude. I should be doing it on this side, but the stand don't fucking work, man. Putting all the weight over here. All right. So the church got the fucking grip on the God ideology. All right. Some motherfuckers like, no, we got our own ideology, and those motherfuckers were a monarchy, and then the monarchy had motherfuckers in there like, no, we got our own motherfuckers, and we want a democracy. We all want to have a right to say into this because you and your Knights of the Round Table can eat a fucking dick. All right. So, what do you call that? Not the corporation, the people. All right, because think about how like the church went the monarchy went to government, and the government went to uh, a corporation, and the government was using the East India Trading Corporation, right? And so another group of people were like, well, hey, fuck you, we're going to break away from that and have our own ideology because we don't want to be a part of that. And each one of those, there's some type of, for lack of a better term, negativity, harm against the humans, the people. So that ideology has been there, whether or not it's recognized. So when you have those belief systems and they're going with stuff, you can have your origin, your maturation, and then the current continuation of the ideology, and they'll never have any idea what was the actual existence of the ideology throughout its origin, maturation, and current continuation to current continuation. Um, yeah, I think that's that right there. So here we are nowadays, all right? You have shootings all the time. I get accused of that stuff, and I'm like, really? No, give me a loaded handgun and find out, all right? Because I'm not going to go kill just random people. I'm not going to go stand on a corner and just shoot people driving by. All right. Um, so, yeah, I mean, if I had a gun, I'd have a gun. All right. I'd have a gun lock. Actually, I think I have a gun lock. I got it free. It was just this free lock. And I was like, oh, this is a fucking gun lock. Got it at a sports show. So those little ones, you could break them easily. Anyways, uh, some people have an ideology of, hey, let's just go do violence. All right. And that's this underlying acknowledgement or not acknowledgement, part of the movement, the ripple, without realizing the way, momentum, the momentum of the ideology, the belief system, the racism, the hateism, the Nazism, the violenceism. And with, what would you call that? ideology of the ideology is the thinking of it and the not thinking of it has basically been the only constant. Um, Due to the fact that wherever you're at in the time of the ideology, you're either in its current continuation, which later on could be a part of the maturation, right? Think about how, like, we look at the church and we say, well, you have the Magna Carta, you have the Council of Worms, you have the Protestant Reformation, and you have the enforcement of the church, the Crusades. So you look about, wow, that's a good 1,000 years. Some say 1,000, some say 800. But if you think about that, and then a couple hundred years after that, here we are, right? Because the Crusades ended a couple hundred years ago, right? But that was still part of the ideology and the enforcement of the ideology. So uh, think about how that is always there. So then you have the government, all right? So the government came about because some people who had enough money and for lack of a better term, connections to say, hey, dude, if you help me out and I win, I will pay you back. I will hook you up. Let's do this. Right? And they basically had some type of common enemy in that ideology that they rebelled against or matured against, right? Because their ideology states, well, we matured from there. We're more mature now than we were back then when our ideology had that type of enforcement. And so that right there is only an understanding or not understanding, sometimes are obviously not the enforcement. So if you're saying, hey, we used to be cruel and unusual, now we're not, well, that's a load of shit. Because when all that shit that back in the day was cruel and unusual, they were saying, no, it's not. This is the blessing of the Lord's wrath. This is retribution. The church's fucking little ideology. And then the government, they had their ideology, which was patriotism or justice, for society, right? And another ideology was able to recognize, well, we can step away from that and we can call ourselves a corporation. And in this corporation, we will not enslave one to one, we will slave all. There cannot be the individual slavery anymore. There must be the enforcement of the mass slavery. So the mass slavery um, is its enforcement of its own ideology. And the thing is, how do you break free from it? Well, at one point in our maturation, we tarred and feathered people. We went out and we committed gruesome acts of cruel and unusual punishment. And we did it to people who were claiming God. And then we also did it to people claiming a monarchy. And we also did it to people claiming a government. And we also did it to people claiming a corporation. And so no matter what ideology that could come from that to say, oh, hey, I'm separating myself from that again, just recognition that its enforcement will be cruel and unusual, and they will accept it as the norm. And they will contest that any act against them is cruel and unusual, and is totally against the ideology, and therefore their ideology allows it to enforce their ideology with cruel and unusual punishment. And that seems to be the norm just about every time. And it's almost to an ideology of, well, you have to realize that's what you're dealing with, right? You're dealing with the people, the humans, who have only been perpetuating, maturing in their current continuation, violent enforcement. And this violent enforcement, recognized in its maturation, or its origin, its maturation, and its current continuation, once had slavery ordained by God, then had slavery ordained by government, and then ordained by corporations such as the Dutch East India Trading Corporation, and basically the monarchy with its government formed a corporation, so that way they could appease to the church to say, well, hey, we're not doing this personally. It is not in the name of the king. It is not in the name of the government. But the church says that all creatures are free and whatever, right? And the church says the church has got to get their cut, the tithe, their 10%, whatever the fuck they can get, right? They got to get their payoff. They got to get their kickback. So the current church can accept whatever they want from the current monarchy, and the current monarchy can say, oh, well, it's not my fault. These people have spoken, and that's the government, which is just a select few. And then they can even say, well, this isn't us. It's a corporation that a group of people decided, right? And they're saying, as the government, they obey these different laws, all right? And the church obeys their law, their ideology. So the government can say, okay, even though the individual human or a small group of humans are the government and the monarchy, they can also claim that they are equal and they have this free right of God or whoever to be separate from the government. So then they, as people, form a corporation. So they're acting on behalf of two separate people, but the same human. You know, one saying, "Oh, we're obeying this God," the other saying, "We're not a part of it because we are a person who's part of a corporation. So the corporation is not a part of the church, the God, and therefore the corporation doesn't have to follow those rules and be good, be equal, you know, because the church had certain things saying, well, you can't hoard all this wealth. You got to do good for the people. You're not supposed to have slaves. You got to make a good wage. You know, you're not supposed to be extorted into slavery. So, the monarchy let go of that, saying, okay, all these people are free. The government said, okay, all these people are free. But the corporation doesn't. The corporation enslaves them. And the corporation is basically something that employs people to be less than slaves, to be slaves. It's basically a form of enforced slavery that part of the ideology is not knowing of the slavery, to know and to not know as its momentum is being enforced. So that way, um, their ideology, the current continuation, uh, doesn't have any responsibility. That ideology doesn't take responsibility, such as where the God ideology says, oh, well, God is responsible, or you specifically are responsible. All right. So, in all those different ideologies, if it isn't some apotheosis, some apex, or origin, it's it's the person whoever has to be dealing with the ideology. Uh, the ideology is being enforced upon. So, the checking the time. Ideology is violent enforcement with its momentum to its current continuation, in its current continuation, whether they know it or not. And if a corporation is going to say, oh, hey, look at this, we can employ all those people. We can employ people with the God ideology. We can employ people with the monarchy ideology. We can employ people with the government ideology. We can employ all the ideologies and as the mass slave. So, where certain ideology says, well, you can't have individual slavery when it comes to people. It had to be only the church, then only the king, then only the government, and all of that. And then it became corporations because those got separate. Where it was like, oh, even though I'm a person, what do? I have no control over this corporation due to the fact that there's other people from other ideologies. And uh, um, that mass enslavement uh, has the recognition that, oh yeah, hey, all the ideologies are enslaved. If you go with it, that's the enforcement of it. That's the momentum of it, because that's the origin, maturation, and current continuation of the corporation ideology. Where it's just like, well, yours all have these different things. Ours has that same one. And that comes from, or it's possible that that's one of those constants in the ideology thing, because the other ideologies were like, oh, well, we're claiming that that person is the leader guy of those of us who believe in the God ideology. And so we were able to get this little stronghold, recruit whoever we could, and spread through a crusade. And our crusade was the current continuation of the ideology at that time. So when you have the corporation ideology, and they're doing the mass and slavery and saying, hey, we will do whatever it takes, and separate any responsibility associated to a person to to the corporate ideology, to the god, the monarch, the government. Um, the corporation will just be like, hey, that's our ideology. What are we going to do? And not only that, what are you going to do? We have all these other ideologies employed to go against you, to interfere with you, to mass enslave you and everybody else, and every other ideology. And oh my fucking god, dude, fucking ribs, dude. All right, so uh, current times, right? Everybody has their own ideology. They're going with it, and then they're going into this mass ideology without realizing they're all enslaved to the corporate ideology. And I'm like, what the fuck? So, like my own ideology. Most people, I don't believe in the right to privacy. No, you want a driver's license, you want to own a business, you want to get a job, you want to get a tax return, you want to get an ID, your passport, you got to submit DNA. Yeah, we got to. Yeah, I believe in that, dude. All right, I can't fucking shut the door. Fuck. Oh my god, dude. Fuck. Ah, ah, oh, a lot of water. So, the corporate ideology, all right, has already got all this, everything. And I'm like, well, my own ideology doesn't. Everybody has their own ideology, all right? But somehow the momentum enforcement keeps people enslaved to facilitate the corporate ideology. So even though I have my own ideology of like, hey, fuck piracy, know who all these people are, open repository of record, that's always been solid. Um, that's my own, all right. And other people, other humans, other people will they'll go and they'll say, okay, we really like what we got going on here, and we're going to go with our own ideology, even though they are enslaved to the corporate ideology. And so, oh, if you notice how there's more than one God, more than one church. The church had a reformation, so there's thousands of churches, um, thousands of kings, thousands of governments, and thousands of corporations. All right, and with that recognition, to see that everybody's ideology. How should I put this? Look at history, wherever the fuck we came from. Our maturation, our maturing. Let's say our maturing, all right, had different spots, all right. We as humans were maturing, but we didn't know each other. We didn't know each other's ideologies or nothing. We didn't even know where the fuck they were, where they're from, nothing. So you got Asians over where Asians are, and they're going with their ideology, all right. And then all of a sudden, the whiteys, they were like, yeah, we're going to spread some of our ideology. And bam, they got like agents got sprung on, all right? But if you realize that both of them were going through time, their whatever the fuck you call it, reality, through their own history, their own current continuation, um, with their own ideologies, without knowing that the other existed. All right. So that's what we got here. At least that's what I was taught. And their ideologies were not, hey, well, let's go spread. Like the Asians weren't like, oh, let's go all over the fucking get everything. Some are taught an ideology of, no, this is our spot. All right. You want to go travel off, you go travel off, but this is our spot. All right. We're not going to go expand because this is our spot. Throughout our maturing, our origin said this is our spot, and our maturing says we fight for the spot. All right. So that's that one. In like Europe, the church kind of had this. Well, we got to put all this religion everywhere. We're going to go spread out here. We're going to go spread out there. All right. But the thing is, people had to pay in for that ideology, and people were enslaved to facilitate it. So to enforce it, to enforce the momentum of that ideology. So if people are willing to enforce an ideology of we must stop these people because they're going to expand, all right? And the people who are there expanding are saying, no, this is our spot. And this is what we're just going to hold on to because that's what we're saying. Hundreds of years ago, without the crusade, there was really no means of enforcing the ideology somewhere else, you know? So now we have an ideology where we just send people to war for some odd reason, right? And I'm like, wow, that's a current ideology with a lot of people. Like America needs to go out there and go to war. And my whole thing is, are all these people going to go out and fight it? They're going to go to the front line. Right? Think about the enforcement of ideology in a corporate manner is just fucking, oh my fuck, dude. Oh fuckery. The enforcement of the corporate ideology does that. It will say, hey, we will send you here, we'll send you there. Some would say, no, we're just going to be right here, and say that it's not corporate, it's monarch, it's God, it's, yeah. And so you got to wonder, like, okay, what type of ideology got into their little spot, right? And for lack of a better term, a crusade. Like, hey, we got to go over there and enforce our belief system because that's what we're doing. Oh my fuck me. So, anyways, with nowadays, the current enforcement of ideology is corporate, corporation ideology. Even though people are saying no, my ideology is of the church. No, my ideology is of the government. My ideology is of the people, the the monarch. You know, um, yeah. So um, that's what that corporate ideology does. It enslaves all those humans, those people of the other ideologies. And whether or not they know, they're a part of it. So think about the stuff, you know, the Dutch East India Trading Company was part of something that's was facilitating something, a law. You got to drink tea at this time, all right? And the law says you can only buy it from the Dutch East India Trading Company. And that right there uh, was like, fuck you, dude. We're a different ideology said fuck you to that, right? But the corporation ideology figured out, oh wow, you see what the government did? So all you got to do is keep producing so more of those laws, as many as you can, and nobody will really know all of them, and therefore you can do whatever you want. And these laws, so look at what would you call it, oil. People have to drive and gasoline to work. Um, uh, Various laws were made back in the day that the engine had to commit a certain act. We call them standards, rules, and regulations. So now the corporation has people required to use gas. And then they do whatever they can with water, air, transportation. Um, so that way they can they employ the government, enslave the government to make laws. And they can also do that to the church due to the fact that these ideologies in a corporate enslavement don't realize it sometimes. Or if they do, they're just going with it because um, it is being enforced or they are enforcing it. And uh, so just every like things, you know, cars, boats, the transportation, for people to go from one spot to another, which used to not be available and used to not be an ideology, where the ideology was like, no, this is our spot, we stay here. And now there's an ideology of, oh no, we can go to all these different spots because we all now have a say as people in this ideology of democracy. You know, and so many of us in this ideology of democracy broke free from a government monarchy, and that government monarchy broke free from a church. So um, those ideologies of separate from the corporation and not enslaved into the corporation will most likely not claim uh, to be a part of the corporation or to be enslaved by it. Um, so the Pope is the head of the church, wears nice clothing, nice shoes. Those are allegedly all handmade with locally here goods, right? Wherever those come from, and those who enforce the church, the people, the humans, they buy goods from everywhere. They're more made from processed goods from far away than a locally, right here, ideology and current continuation, whatever you want to call that. Um, oh my God. So the same as with the monarchy, when monarchies basically developed or took part in developing corporations, or at the very least copied them, and said that they were the leader chosen by God, and the church recognized it, and they were allowed to have their own little monarchy government, and they were all related, and they were allowed to form a corporation that basically allowed them to enslave every little thing. So then, at the maturation or the current continuation of a corporation, they are no longer just the monarchy government. People get into those corporations and they can swindle whatever they can. And then you have ideologies like the hateism, the racism, the violentism, the Nazism, the ideologyism. Um, Rampaging, enforcing its ideology, its momentum, and it facilitates the corporate enforcement of the corporate ideology. That there is no specified leader guy, and there is no responsibility, there is no rights, because the corporation is allegedly not a person, not a human. And so they're not responsible, and they can't be held to whatever belief system other ideologies have. Yet they are actually controlled by people who are claiming other ideologies. So those who are in the enforcement of the momentum of the corporate ideology and those in charge who have a grasp of it may not even realize that the corporate ideology has enslaved them, because they think they are a part of a different ideology, such as claiming a church or a monarchy or government, where the if you acknowledge that as a ripple, there's not two ripples at the same time. It's just the same one, right? Um, so that so the what would you call that, ideology cannot be the same ripple, same shape, same mechanism as the church. If somebody in the church ideology is enslaved to the corporation and not realize it, that just means they are actually enslaved by the corporate ideology and they don't know it. So that's kind of that's one of the differences in the ideology of corporation with all the other ones, where the other ones, the church ideology, the monarchy ideology, the government ideology, all wanted people to know if they were enslaved or not. They have to say, hey, you are mine. I'm enforcing this ideology that I am allowed to do this. All right. And saying that it cannot be done massively or against them. Where, in fact, they were claiming that ideology based upon their uh, monarchy ideology, their government ideology, or their church ideology. And they were able to uh, the corporate ideology was able to grasp that, and that's the corporate ideology. But those in charge of the corporate ideology, those who are enforcing the momentum of the corporate ideology, may not know it, or if they, well, I guess you would have to be in charge to facilitate and commit the mass enslavement. So, oh my fuck, dude. I feel like I need a chiropractor and a strip. Honestly, a whole bunch of shit, dude. All right, but anyways, so the current, what would you call that? Continuation of the mass of humans, the people, they're going about as being enslaved by a corporate ideology that, we're all a part of the democracy. We're all a part of the church. We can all do this. We all are allowed to travel. We all have these rights, and we all get this stuff. And this stuff comes from other ideologies. And the enforcement of that ideology uh, has been violent. And I believe that, like, our current state really has that going strong. America is funding Ukraine. And people are like, oh, that's a great ideology. And some are like, no, it's not. I'm one of the ones who say, no, it's not. I believe it's part of the corporate ideology. So that way they can just enslave more people to say, oh, well, we want these goods here. And those goods can honestly be weapons, tanks, trains, planes, whatever the fuck, all right? And then the people enforcing that will, with their ideology of, oh, I have the right to get all this stuff from all these other people, will continue to purchase corporate goods that are not locally from the area where they're at. And that will continue this violent momentum of ideologies, whether or not those who are enforcing it know about it. Um, uh, so this violence is a current belief system. And most of the times, you have to have people volunteer for it. So if you look at the Crusades, you look at whether you call it the Asians that are always saying, no, this is our land, this is who we are, this is our spot. They're not expanding. Some would say they did. And some would say, well, no, these ones expanded, these ones didn't. They got conquered, then they broke free and controlled the area that they claimed they were enslaved to enforce and go to, right? So, um, these different ideologies have only been able to actually exist in their violent enforcement through people who are willing to volunteer for committing those violent enforcements. And each belief system has that everywhere you go. So, in several belief systems, several ideologies have their mainstay, their footing, because they committed the same violent enforcement that was already committed upon them. So, 12:46. Yeah, it's about time to go check out what's going on, and then come back and take some of these other gummies that are supposed to help me sleep. Um, yeah, there's that. That's quite the receding hairline there. So, uh, the violent enforcement, the mass enslavement is all we got going on right now. Um, I'm like, what the fuck is this? And, watching the retard Ouija board, um, it's like, that's all we're going to get, And it's almost like, well, can we just fucking get to it? Because, oh, what the fuck are we doing? Yeah, we went to Iraq, we went to Iran, or Afghanistan. Um, with some fucking whatever ideology we fucking had. And so you have these leader guys of the government, and they have their belief in their ideology that, well, they get to do what they're doing, and they get to get their volunteers to enforce the momentum and the current continuation of their ideology. So, um, uh, their fucking belief system is, for lack of a better term, being enforced upon other ideologies. Like me, I'm like, hey, let's fucking no, don't fund Ukraine, don't escalate that shit. That's fucking retarded. Um, so yeah, and that ideology is basically just gung hoing, right? And it's, for lack of a better term, one of those, hey, let's go expand, and that's also a corporate thing to say, well, we're not doing it. This corporation is doing it. We're not sending weapons. We're not escalating this. It's actually through this corporation because we don't make those. The corporation does, and those corporations are getting stuff from all over the place and making stuff all over the place. And what are we supposed to do about it? Because, well, the law says this. Yeah. And like the founding fathers, they dealt with that same shit, and they were like, "You want to what? Fuck you," and went to tarring and feathering people in the corporation, people in the government, and people of the church. And they really didn't give a fuck, and that was part of their ideology of like, yo, dude, I'm not stupid. I know it's all of you working together, and that you all eventually came from your origin of this church, all right, or this God. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, guess what? We're claiming the origin of the God also, and we're saying that, yeah, we're we're enforcing our ideology. Ugh. Because if you can get those people together and say that that's there in their church and their ideology and their belief and their God, and they enforce that it is our God also, we can also say that, oh yeah, well, this origin says that we are allowed to do these things. And as part of our maturing, we get to say fuck you to the church. We don't have to listen to you. That we are past that in our current continuation. Um, we are still going with the origin of God, yet we are at this point where we are matured past somebody telling us uh, what God wants us to do, and enforcing it. Like, oh, it's God's will that we go. These people get enslaved and sent to go work into a field. Bullshit. All right, but that was their ideology and that was their enforcement of it. All right, and so other people got out and were like, yeah, fuck that. And they're like, yeah, well, we're saying God allows us to enforce fuck you. And that right there has been considered, well, can be considered part of the maturing of the church, where the church eventually recognized various things like the Magna Carta, the Protestant Reformation, like human rights. Where the church is now out there like, oh, okay, whoa, yeah, look at where we're at right now. We'll go with you. Everybody has these rights. Yeah, and slavery is wrong. But back in the day, it used to be, well, if you got a problem with us enslaving, we're going to burn your ass at the stake. And that was their enforcement of their ideology. So the church now is matured past that into their current, okay, everybody has rights. And those who went against that could easily say, well, no, we have governments that say we can violate your rights. And then those who went even further past that were like, well, we have corporations. Yeah. And the corporation does not have an origin with the God. Everything else, the church, the monarchy, the government monarchy, non-monarchy governments, all have an origin with a God. All right, because the people are all claiming, well, if any of these motherfuckers can claim any of this shit, because of what they're saying, we can always claim fucking God. Why? That was the enforcement of the part of our origin, where we came from, and uh, and that is recognition of the origin of that ideology. So, um, I think I'm repeating myself. Uh, the corporate belief system, right there, again, does not recognize any of the rights or the origin or the maturation of the other belief systems or ideologies, where some of those ideologies say, well, you have to recognize uh, our ideology's origin, our how should I put this? You have to recognize our ideology, and you have to recognize our current continuation of recognizing our ideology's origin and maturation to our current continuation. Yeah. So if back in the day, um, they were like, well, we recognize it because God said so, and we can be brutal with you. And then it gets to the point of, well, we recognize it because we understood that we're not supposed to be brutal with you. The maturing thing that just allows um, any ideology to be violently enforced, whether they recognize they're violently enforcing or not. Let's go out and see what's going on. Yeah, so yeah, there's a little talk about ideologies and where we're currently at. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? But it's 1 a.m. Let's go out and see what's going on. I'm going to end this stream and go start another. Peace. Love you.